Well, I want to entertain a thought that might be just a little bit of an intellectual conspiracy exercise in delving down the rabbit hole, if you want to call it that. What about if the Georgia Guidestones are actually guided by an alien agenda? And it's not as ludicrous as it sounds on the surface immediately. If you really delve down into some of the things that are more reality, that are too strange for people to believe, but are basically backed up by concrete facts and also very honest people that came forth and talked about aliens. Now, as you know, the Georgia Guidestones were erected, I think, in 1980. It was, I think the date was March 22nd. The date itself is kind of a unique number, that it's 322, which is the skull and bones number. That I don't know what the significance of it is exactly, but 322 was the date of when these stones were erected. I suspect it was Ted Turner that gave the money to the man, the $20 million, the granite company, to erect these stones. I suspect that. I don't know if it is him, but considering that he publicly talked about bringing the human population down to 300 million, and the Georgia Guidestones are saying below 500 million globally, it could be him. It's just a guess, but we'll say. Now, look at the sign, what actually reads on the stones. It's in multiple languages, the multiple languages of the world. Maintain humanity under 500 million as in perpetual balance with nature. That's the one everybody has a beef with, because that means over 7.5 billion people must go. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. And actually, if you look at what's going on today with homosexual rights, bisexual rights, birthing rights, transgender rights, it is actually trying to take the reproductive rights that the individual has away from them and say it belongs to this group, or it should be decided by a higher power. So you almost look at a lot of different things that are going on with even Agenda 21. Maintain humanity under 500 million, perpetual balance in nature. A lot of that's lining up. But now let's we'll just go over these real quick. I'm not going to go over all of them, but the thing is, I'm going to get on with the alien agenda per se, and how this can actually make sense that this is really coming from an alien agenda. The way I look at it is, if it's a human agenda, when you're looking at people that are of higher intellect, they realize that the Earth is not the limit. We can go to other planets eventually. Maybe that's an impossibility today, but what seemed impossible just 100 years ago is definitely not impossible today, and what seems impossible today could probably be reality tomorrow. In other words, balance personal rights with social duties. You can see the socialism coming on strong every which way. Avoid petty rules and useless officials. I would agree with that, which means most of everything that's out there. Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. You can see that's going on through the United Nations. Now, I could say, yes, that's arguing for maybe it's from a human agenda, but let's talk about some other people that I think were legit. I know in the conspiracy world, when there's people that talk about various things, I think a lot of them are disinformation, like David Icke, I think is different disinformation. I'm not sure about Alex Jones. He goes overboard a lot of times, but then again, I don't know. I'm not too cool on him, but Bill Cooper, I think he was legit. The reason is he predicted 9/11. He talked about that terrorist attack before it happened, and also he was killed. And Alex Jones basically threw him under the bus, if you want to say it so verbally. And actually, Bill Cooper calls out Alex Jones as a disinformation coward. I don't know if that's true or not, but the fact that Bill Cooper died and he predicted some things like 9/11, and he did talk a lot about aliens. He didn't believe this stuff until he actually saw something when he was aboard a submarine on watch duty when they're above surface. And there was other witnesses, and they were told not to talk about it. He saw a craft coming out from the ocean. Now, I don't think the guy was lying. Okay, that's one of the things. Now, there's astronauts that talk about this. There's a lot of people high up in the military that talk about this. It's probably legit. But then again, these are eyewitness accounts. We have some other photos and things like that today. But you can argue these things back and forth. And you can say most of them are garbage, but sightings. But then again, some of them are probably real. Phil Snyder was another one I think that was legit. He was actually murdered. He talked about aliens being underground in military bases. There was like almost a dozen attempts on his life before they finally got him. And when they finally did kill him, they left a lot of valuable gold and cash around. It was not a murder for money. It was probably a murder to silence him. I think he was legit. Most of the people out there that are talking about this type of stuff, I think, are not legit. I don't have any inside information, but I'm going to give you common sense on this deal. Now, I know back in the 1950s, after the Roswell incident, and after a lot of different things that went on in World War II, where World War II pilots cited a lot of these different, craft that were flying next to their aircraft, and they thought it was German secret aircraft, and the Germans thought it was Allied secret aircraft, and it turned out neither one of us had that kind of capability. That's actually where the musical rock group, the Foo Fighters, comes into. Their name came from. Basically, those UFOs that the World War II pilots saw, and you saw that gave rise to a lot of these crazy freaking movies in the 1950s about science fiction and aliens and things, which is very popular because of after the Roswell incidents and all the activity that happened in World War II and all the sightings by military pilots that you could trust their credentials. It wasn't like you got to consider the source of the information where it's coming from. So a lot of times when you're seeing military that have been in a long time, or you've been seeing talking about a pilot's been, it has a lot of experience. He's not going to put his career on the line to tell you some crazy concocted story just for some kind of attention. And plus we do have some physical evidence of photos and things. So, even though some of the photos, a lot of the photos are fake. But let me put it to you this way. When I'm looking at that Georgia Guidestones, Guide Reproduction Wisely, I almost think of it as a wildlife habitat management center, as if there is a higher race of people out there that are basically having a hands-off attitude on the human race. But then again, there's probably an agenda to bring everything in the ecological habitat on this earth in balance, or what they consider an imbalance. It may not just be a human agenda. Now, I'm just putting this out here as a, intellectual thought, process whereby, it may be true. It's something that sounds totally out there and ludicrous to me on the surface, but if you just, break down those walls of what you previously believe, and you just follow the logic behind this, and you do admit that there's a very strong possibility that there is higher life forms out there besides us. Yeah, maybe they are looking at the human race and what's going on this planet as an ecological system that needs to be managed. And when you're looking at those Georgia Guidestones and a lot of the impetus for the carrying out their their creeds or whatever they are, bringing humanity down, guiding diversity and fitness, basically those set of rules that they have put forth on the Georgia Guidestones being implemented through a lot of different global bodies. You might think, well, those are the human enablers, but then again, maybe there is an alien agenda behind this, because it does seem to rhyme akin to what we would be doing in managing a wildlife system. In other words, if we had an ecosystem where there was too many deer in the area, we would not get rid of all the deer. Or if there was too many wolves in the area, we would not get rid of all the wolves, but we try to balance it out. And maybe that's what they're trying to do with the human population. It may not just be a human agenda, because it doesn't make sense for it to be a human agenda, because, like I said, the human species, I think, has got no limits on how far it can go. It can go to other parts of the solar system. There's probably other planets we can habitate. We could probably habitate Mars, even though they say it's uninhabitable today, with the right technology. And I think there's a lot of suppressed, ways of getting energy systems out there. We could probably live on Mars and thrive. But then, even so, on this planet, we have not tried to build cities on the ocean. We have not tried to build cities in Antarctica due to the exorbitant cost. But then again, there's probably ways to do that, with even existing technology that the military has that is not being shown to the public. But it looks like there's an agenda right now to bring down and manage the population, just like it's a wildlife ecosystem. Now, I'm going to tell you one other thing that is hard, concrete evidence, and you can say no or yes, but you can look on YouTube all over the place. There's a lot of different places on, maybe not an extreme amount of videos, but there are out there on YouTube, whereby they show that people have had implants put in them that were alien implants. They were not something put in there by man. They were a type of material that was unknown to us. They were like an actively reforming material. If you try to cut it in half, it would reform itself. And it goes along with these human abductions that some people say they were abducted by aliens. To me, I think it's probably true, even though it sounds too far out there. It's not something I want to believe in. But let me put it this way: it goes akin with the way a human would tag an animal, or tag a shark, or tag a whale, or whatever. It goes along with the same type of analogy of methodology. So that's some physical evidence to show that humans are actually some humans, not most, but some humans are actually being tagged. And when I look at this Obamacare freaking type thing with all the forced vaccinations, you never know what the hell they could be doing with that. That could be something to actually even tag us too. Who the hell knows? But and I'm looking at this thing overall. A lot of people are looking at it. The Illuminati elite are doing this. The Illuminati elite are doing that. It may be a little bit beyond that. I know David Icke talks about this type of stuff, but I don't think he's legit. I think he's giving you some types of information are true. I think he's a disinformation agent. Disinformation agent is this: the person that gives you truth and then they wrap it up and target lies. It's like putting meat on a fish hook. The fish will not bite on the hook, bite that target lie, unless they put a juicy morsel of something on there for the fish to bite. So they will give you truth. All disinformation agents will give you truth, but most people can't decipher what's the hook and what's the bait, and just take the bait and leave the hook. So I do think, though, the overall premise that there is an alien agenda behind the Georgia Guidestones, they're protected by the police. They're protected by the state government. They're protected by the federal government, which tells you something in itself. It's amazing that, somebody doesn't come out and say, the Georgia Guidestones is a form of hate speech, because maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature means you have to eliminate over 7.5 billion people. In other words, it's calling for the elimination and murder, disposal of 7.5 billion people. So number one on here could be considered hate speech, but you will not hear any police, state law, legislation, lawmakers, whatever you want to call them, or anybody in our Congress, House of Representatives, and Senate, or of course our President Obama, whatever is going to be the next president, will say anything against this, which tells me, to me, I would look at this and I'd say to myself, well, they're talking about a Confederate flag being a hate speech. Well, what about this Georgia Guidestones? Well, isn't this Georgia Guidestones calling for the elimination of 7.5 billion people? No, it's not hate speech, though, right? We're going to leave it up there and protect it, have the police protect it with our taxpayer money, right? So I say there's something else going on beyond this, even beyond the human agenda. It may be an alien agenda, which doesn't necessarily mean it's beyond us, because, even if we are a lower life form, if you want to call it, and say there's aliens out there, there's many times a fox or a cat has outsmarted a human, so we might well think of ourselves as a cat species and compare ourselves as a cat species that we can outsmart those aliens. So anyway, and thrive and survive. I just want to put this out there as food for thought, but I think if you break down the walls of religion, you break down the laws of what you were taught, and break down the walls of what you believe, and just look at it from a simple logic standpoint, it looks like this could very well be true. Because, one, I'll state it again, there's been a number of people with impeccable credentials that have stated that aliens were sighted by them. I mentioned Phil Snyder and Bill Cooper. Now, you might disagree about their credentials, but I'll say those are the only two I know of in the real conspiratorial world that I would trust that talked about aliens. The rest of them, I'm not sure. I think they got a lot of disinformation in there. But there's a lot of people I'm not naming. There's a lot of astronauts and a lot of former pilots that have talked about alien sightings. There were numerous all over the place in World War II. Even talking about, I'll bring this out too, that there was supposedly times when aliens were able to shut down our missile defense system and missile offense system, if you want to call it, with the ICBMs. Just shut down everything where they wouldn't work. That was actually said by people in the military. So, I don't think it's all bad probably what these aliens are doing, but then again, they're not necessarily doing it now for a best interest. If they do exist, they probably do exist. And a lot of this stuff is explained away by religion and all this kind of stuff and miracles and who the hell knows. But so I'm going to catch some heat on that. I know that. But right now, I'm going to tell you that, it does look like there's an ecological management system going on, and it's not being perpetuated by an elite group of humans. It may be coming up from higher than that. And like I said, I think people like David Icke are actually disinformation agents. They're telling you some truth, and I don't know. They're just not giving you the whole deal. I can't give you the whole truth on this deal, but I can tell you one thing. Many times, even though, we as humans consider ourselves much smarter than every species on the planet, and we can do anything we want, supposedly, maybe that's just how the aliens think they are, a lot of times the animals outsmart us. So even if we are a lower life form, or whatever you want to call it, and this premise I'm putting forth here is all accurate, and I think it is because of the implants that were found on humans, and due to they had alien abductions, and then they found later on some of these human abductions by aliens that they found implants on them. There's physical evidence that they were tagged by aliens. And you can find this on YouTube. So if you think it's ludicrous, there are some very, very honest, people with a lot of credentials that are showing this evidence, and you can find these videos on YouTube. And but I'm saying is, it looks like the Georgia Guidestones are connected to an ecological management system, maybe not devised by humans, but devised by another race of people or something, or species, or whatever the hell it is, whatever they look like. Actually, there's some astronauts out there and some other high people in the military that'll tell you there's like dozens of alien species out there. Dozens. Some that look just like us. Amazing, huh? So, anyway, I just want to put this out for food for thought because, we the people often can outsmart even people that are much smarter than us, even if they're not people. For all I know, Hillary Clinton is a freaking biological clone that's an alien, She's got no heart. I don't even think she sweats. So, Obama, for all I know, we don't even know where the hell he came from, man. He's got no birth certificate that we can tell that's legit. They're assuming he was born in Kenya. For all I know, he was hatched in a military base, for crying out loud. I don't know. I really don't know. So, a lot of things that are going on right now, if you really just break down the walls of religion, what you believe in, what you freaking thought was correct and everything else, the alien agenda and its linking to what the rules are set forth in this Georgia Guidestones may be linked very much so. And we might be thought of by them as an ecological habitat to be managed. And I say to hell with that. But then again, everything, I could tell you one thing. We can learn a lot from cats and we can learn a lot from foxes, because I could tell you one thing. Shrewdness and stealth is everything. And staying out of the limelight completely sometimes is the smart thing to do. And cunning is the whole word that you really should watch for, versus shrewdness and cunning, versus being smarter than somebody in a way that can be measured quantitatively. So, just want to put this out here for you because a lot of times I think this is true. And, you know, like I said, the physical evidence is there. The sightings are there by people with impeccable credentials. And it does show that there's an existence of aliens. And I'm starting thinking, hey, just make the association between wildlife habitat and how humans manage other species. Maybe we're going to be managed too. And I don't particularly like that idea, but to tell you the truth, we can always outsmart them. And I think that's really what our agenda needs to be. Outsmart the, the guys that are trying to outsmart us. And, you know, people like Bill Cooper that were out there in the limelight, they were killed. People like Phil Snyder who were out there in the limelight, he was killed too. So sometimes it pays to be very stealthful. And people that are out in the limelight all the time, like David Icke and Alex Jones, and are not killed, I have very much big suspicions of. So I'll leave you with that.